Are you comfortable around someone else's negative emotion? Their sadness, their anger, their frustration, their depression. Are you okay being in the force field of somebody else's emotion? Now, I would say that it's difficult for pretty much everybody, but particularly for highly sensitives. We feel so deeply anyway, and we have the tendency to get swept up in other people's emotions. We just don't usually have that boundary unless we really learn how to set it. That's what we'll be talking about today. This is one of the 30 things that I wish I would have known as a highly sensitive much earlier on in my life, that other people's happiness is not my responsibility, and that I don't have to be dragged down by somebody else's emotion. So first, let's talk about why it is so difficult for us. Because one of the reasons in childhood, we probably weren't allowed to express our own emotions. We weren't allowed to express a lot of anger. Now, this was something really fascinating that I heard from Dr. Becky Kennedy. She is like my go-to for parenting, and you learn a lot about yourself when you become a parent. So I learned from her that we get triggered so much as parents, because for me, it is hard. It is still hard to see my kiddo, particularly in frustration. When he gets really frustrated and angry about something, ooh, it's my nervous system immediately goes into like, oh my God, something is wrong. I need to fix it. And then a lot of time goes into anger, because then I'm like, oh, somebody else to fix. I just got in the kitchen. I need to cook. I need to do these million other things. Why can't my kid just play and be happy, right? So we want to rush in and fix it to just go back to our thing. So we weren't allowed a lot of times to express our frustration as kids. We learned that it's not safe. We learned that it causes us disconnection from our parent, from whoever was taking care of us. We don't get that love anymore when we are frustrated or angry. So then our nervous system is like, wait, this is really dangerous. You can't go into that emotion because it's going to cause abandonment. You're not going to feel that love anymore. So then when our kid goes into it, our nervous system wants to teach this kid, like, hey kid, I learned that when you go into frustration, it causes disconnect from the person you love. So I'm just trying to teach you, don't go into frustration. It's going to cause disconnection. So really, you're trying to help, but you're triggering, of course. In the larger scheme, doesn't help. So we'll talk about that. But that's one reason why it's so hard for us to deal with other people's negative emotions, because we were taught very early on as a kid, it causes disconnection. What's another point? Oh yeah, it's just too draining. Oh my God. It is so draining to hold that space. Holding that space for another person while they're going through big emotions is challenging, but you can do it. You know, especially as a mom of a 6-year-old, I'm having to go through a lot of emotions. That's one of the things I did not know I was going to have to do as a parent, is to hold space for so many big emotions. And particularly as a highly sensitive, this is challenging. This is why I'm trying to reach you, whether you have little kids right now or you're planning to have kids as a highly sensitive in particular. Oh, let's get you to the point where you have really mastered your own emotions, so then you can hold the space, right? It's all about where you are. If you're already filled up, if we can get you into a better rhythm in your life, then you can hold that space more. And the last point of why it's so hard for us to hold that space for somebody else's emotion, particularly, I've noticed that particularly with my partner, I'm afraid of abandonment. I'm afraid if he is consistently in a negative emotional space, that somehow I'm to blame for it because I'm his partner. I'm supposed to make him happy, right? That's a myth we'll talk about another time. But if he's consistently in a bad mood, in a negative emotional space, I'm going to be afraid that he's going to have enough of this. He's going to think something needs to change and he's going to leave. So those are kind of the reasons why it's so hard to hold that space around somebody else's negative emotion. Now, I have prepped 3 points for today of what to do with it. What are you going to do when somebody around you, your kid, your spouse, your parent, your friend, your coworker, when somebody else is in a negative emotion like anxiety, like depression, like sadness, like frustration, like anger? What do you do? 3 steps. Oh yeah, I'm not going to tell you all of them. Let's just start with the first one. Emotions are valuable. Emotions are so valuable, especially, well, all of them, because it does feel amazing to be creative, to be in flow, to be hopeful, to be inspired, to be in bliss. Those feel amazing. So we can all agree those are valuable. How about the negative emotions? How is depression supposed to serve me? How's anger supposed to serve me? I'm going to attach another video to this. I did a whole video on how anger, serves you so much. Anger is the agent that finally gets us to take action. Finally, when we go, enough is enough, I'm done, something needs to change, we're finally willing to take big steps forward to finally end that relationship, to finally get out of that job, to finally start paying attention to our own health, to take the steps to get into a better health, right? Anger gets you to take action steps forward. So important. What was another example? Depression. Depression's a hard one, right? Because so many times when you're in depression, you feel like you'll always be there. But depression actually serves you as well. A lot of times we get into depression, particularly as highly sensitives, when we have been too busy, when we've been too outwardly focused, when we're trying to do too much. Depression, I love the way that Bajar channel by Daryl Anka, they say depression really starts as compression, and it is a good process. It is a process by your own psyche that goes, the answers don't lie outside of me, the answers are within. So let me draw within to reconnect to myself, because I've been so busy being out in the world, reconnect to myself to find the answers within me. But we have put a very negative stigma on this of like, oh my gosh, I'm withdrawing, I'm no longer being social, I'm not engaging in my life. Of course, when you go a long time with this, of course, we want to get you out of that pattern. But if from the beginning you would allow and understand this compression celebrated as something that is necessary and that is beautiful and that is helpful, you wouldn't get stuck down there in depression, right? Anxiety. How can anxiety serve us? It really shows us that something is incredibly important to us, right? Something is incredibly important. It also helps you to realize, I need some tools to help me to either deal with what was in the past or some tools right now to help me regulate my nervous system, right? The most important thing, and we'll wrap up this point number 1 with this one. The most important about accepting all emotions, particularly the negative emotions, is that every emotion you have really stems from a belief. This also comes from Bajar, right? Incredible teaching. Whenever you have an emotion, it's based on a belief. So any negative emotion serves you to uncover beliefs that are no longer serving you. So any emotion you have, I'm incredibly frustrated. What must I believe is true in order to feel the way I do? What must I believe is true? Because it gets you to realize what you're thinking about a particular thing in your life. And we'll use that one in point number 2. Well, point number 2 is really how to distinguish your own emotions from somebody else's emotions, because that's sometimes hard as a highly sensitive. The emotions flow so easily, but really how to start taking charge and being in charge, mastering your own emotions. And so that we don't get sucked down, right? It's so easy for us to get sucked down. You're in a good emotional space. Gosh, this is particularly difficult when it's with the people who you love the most. Like, oh, you're having a good morning. Your kid wakes up super grumpy, super uncooperative. Ooh, is it easy to slide down into like grumpiness yourself? That's when it's so important to establish your own emotion, your own vibration, fortify that, and hopefully be the one, right? I always see myself as like, am I going to be overtaken by somebody else's vibration and let them pull me down in frequency? Or am I going to radiate my positive, uplifting, hopeful attitude so much that I'm going to uplift them, right? If I have to be around them, if I can't walk out the room, and you usually can't with a 6-year-old, you're responsible for them. How can I bring the emotion of like playfulness to help them shift their emotion? Which, let's talk about this right now, real quick. Is it necessary? Is it your responsibility to help somebody else change their emotion? No, it's not. It's wonderful if you can do it for your kid because you're modeling. You're helping them really find, how do I master my own emotions, right? You're modeling it. With somebody else, it is not your responsibility. Is it nice? Sure, but don't make it your job, particularly if it drains you a whole lot, right? Give them the space to process their own emotions and figure out the reason. What is the reason why you want to uplift them? Why you want to get them out of that negative emotion space, right? Because once I realized, oh, hey, I want to uplift them. I want to help them feel better. But I realized a lot of times it was because it's so much easier to be around somebody else who is uplifting, who is hopeful, who is happy, who is inspired. It's so much easier and more fun to be around other people who are like that. So I was trying to uplift others to then have an easier time to just manage my own emotions, because then I can just let it flow, right? I can just be in other people's high vibes and just tag along. Well, it's not fair to want to change somebody else's emotion, to be like, you have to be happy because I only want to be around happy people. Give them that freedom to be in their own space, to be in their own emotion, and to process whenever they're ready. And then to be loving to yourself and say, well, what is the boundary that I need? Do I need to be somewhere else in order to hold my own vibration? But the more familiar you get with your own emotions, and the more confident you get in being able to direct and master your own emotions, the easier it really is to let somebody else be in their emotion without getting dragged down. And I have done so many videos on this. I love emotions. I always come back to the easy 3 steps that Tony Robbins gives you about how to shift your own emotion, how to handle your own emotion, how to be secure in your own emotion. Any emotion really has 3 parts. Physiology, that means what are you doing with your body? Think about what it looks like when you're depressed versus what it looks like when you're happy, joyous, excited. What are you doing with your body? So different, right? The depressed person is like slouching, the voice is low, they're quiet, they're usually sitting or laying down. When you're happy, when you're excited, you're jumping up and down, you're throwing your arms up, you're like, have a big smile on your face. Do you know, they did a study of happiness. Well, really, people who were depressed, they were supposed to stand in front of the mirror, I don't know how many times a day, and just smile. Just smile. Stand in front of the mirror and smile. And the people who did this exercise versus the control group that didn't, they actually were less depressed at the end of the week. Why? Because they changed their physiology. Your body talks to your mind. Your body is like, hey, I'm feeling good. And your mind is like, oh, okay, we'll tag along. Physiology, if you change your physiology, this is why people eat when they're stressed, because the food calms them down, right? Changing your physiology, you're changing systems in your body. This is why it helps when you go for a run or you're exercise, because you're changing your physiology, helps you get into a better space. I love going out into nature, walking. That kind of gets you both. You're changing your physiology. You're around beautiful things in nature. Ugh, it really helps. The second point that helps you to change your emotion is focus. Where are you focused? If you keep on focusing on this person and on this bad mood, it's going to be hard to shift you to be in your own vibration, to be in your own happiness if you're focused on their grumpiness, right? If you can just be like, okay, he is in a bad mood. Let me go and focus on my own thing. I'm going to go listen to my podcast, or I'm going to go, focus on my meditation, whatever. Your focus, where are you drawing your focus? Focus is always like, what are the thoughts in your head? What are you listening to in your own head of like, where is your focus? You can shift, you can deliberately shift your focus to say, I'm going to focus on something else. I always talk about the 7 key areas in your life, right? So there's so many other things to focus on. If your relationship is tough in that morning, you can focus on your own health. You can focus on family. You can focus on spirituality. You can focus on a hobby. There's so many other parts of your life that you can focus on. Now, unpracticed, your mind is always going to want to wander back to the thing that's broken, right? This is where our focus wants to go. It's wonderful. We are problem-solving people, and especially as highly sensitives, we are super in tune of figuring out the problem, and we want to make sure we smooth it out so then we can be in an easy, safe environment and feel good. But we have to remember, we can create that from the inside out. And when you create it from the inside out, it's a whole lot more stable, because you can't control the outside environment all the time unless you're by yourself. And you don't want to be by yourself all the time. The third step of Tony Robbins' 3 steps to change any emotion, to really fortify whatever emotion you want to be in, is meaning. What is the meaning you're giving to whatever is happening? Let's say my kid is grumpy. He wakes up grumpy and he's just like, no, no, no to everything. We got to get out the door. What is the meaning in my head? What am I telling myself? Oh, great. This is going to be another really tough morning. I don't want to do this. Why does it have to be like this? All the things that I do, does it even make an impact? The meaning you're giving is, this is something that went wrong. Versus if you give it a meaning to say, oh, well, everybody wakes up grumpy every once in a while, right? How can I still get through this morning in a good way, right? It's like, this is just a grumpy mood. It doesn't reflect anything about my character or my ability as a mom. It doesn't mean that the whole day is going to be really hard or really challenging, or even the whole morning. Kids actually shift their emotions way quicker than adults do. It's incredible. But you kind of have to hold that space. If you push hard against it, they're going to lean into their own emotion. It's incredible. You should try it sometime. So the meaning that you give something, right? Something happens, and the meaning that you give it, right? It's like, if your partner is grumpy and he heads out the door, the meaning you can give it is either, oh, he's having a tough morning. I hope he's going to figure it out, or I'll write him a sweet text message later and kind of, hopefully help him to be in a better mood. Or you can be like, oh my God, he's grumpy. He's in a bad mood. This relationship isn't working. What am I doing wrong? Is he unhappy with me? All the rabbit holes that we go down into, especially as highly sensitives, ruminating about things. It's so good to check your own emotions and your own thought process of like, what am I going through right now? What am I telling myself? So those were the 3 big steps about owning your own emotion, your own vibration, physiology. What am I doing with my body, with my voice, what am I doing with my body? Focus. Where am I focused? Which area in my life am I focused? Which part of my morning? Which part of my day? Which part of my life am I focused? And then The last one, meaning. What meaning am I giving this thing that's happening right now in my life? Shifts it hugely. Go download my free guide. I put together a guide that's called The 3 Things That Every Highly Sensitive Needs to Know in Order to Thrive. That has a lot in there about emotions and shifting your emotions. I'll add the link below, but it's just on my website, healingyouremotions.com/thrive. You can download this free guide. It has all these steps in there, has a lot of incredible information in there. And then we'll get to step number 3, right? Because we're talking about how can you be okay with other people's emotions around you? And what do you do? So that's step number 3 in order to be able to handle other people's emotions is actually to communicate. Communicate your needs, right? Understand your own needs, communicate your own needs and actions. What are you going to do from here? If you're able to communicate, it makes things so much more smoothly. Of course, it depends on who it is, right? You're going to talk to your kid differently than you would talk to your partner, differently than you would talk to your coworker. But it is so good first to even be aware of your own needs in that situation, right? What do I need in this moment in order to feel okay? Do I need a moment to myself? You can even do this with your kid. I love it the way that Dr. Becky Kennedy teaches it. You can even tell a small kid, ooh, mommy really got triggered for a moment. I'm gonna just be in my room for 30 seconds to take a few breaths. Or if it's too small of a child and you can't leave them alone, start deep breathing. That already calms everybody down. My kid, even when he was 4 years old, when I would get a little bit more huffy in my tone, he would be like, because we already taught him to take those deep breaths. That is the first step to calm yourself down. And when you start taking a deep breath, then the person around you is also going to take deeper breaths, right? Mirroring neurons. They're going to pick up on that. They're going to start taking a deeper breath and then assess in your mind, what do I need and what can I do in this situation? Do I need to walk away? Do I need to distance myself from that negative emotion from this person? Do I need to put in AirPods? Gosh, so many times I interact with my kid and then I'm like, okay, sweetie, I need a moment to myself. And I put my AirPods in order just listening to some calming music, listening to a meditation, whatever it is, listening to a book that gets my mind off of things, right? Shifting my focus, whatever it is, what is it that you need in this moment in order to feel better about being in this negative emotion, right? You can't always change it, especially if it's somebody else, when it's your kid, when it's your spouse, when it's your whoever you're around. You can't necessarily change it. What can you do for yourself to get your own nervous system in check, to check in with you of is this my emotion? Did I do something wrong? Did I do something to elicit this kind of bad mood, this frustration, this anger from this other person? Is there something that I need to apologize for or fix or do something about? Or is this truly their thing, and can I allow them the space to process their own emotions? And what do I need to do for myself, for my own emotions, in order to feel okay in this moment? What do I need? Yeah. And just, that comes back to the very first thing that we talked about, right? To remember that whatever emotion is going on within yourself or within somebody else is okay. It's okay. Nothing has gone wrong when there's anger, when there's anxiety, when there's frustration, when there's depression. Nothing has gone wrong. It's just an emotion coming to give you a message or coming to give them a message. It's a matter of realizing that and then understanding, how can I calm my own body and how can I get back to a better feeling space, right? Also, the wonderful thing that Abraham Hicks always teaches, they're one of my favorite channeled beings and spiritual teachers. They're like, you can't truly activate two vibrations at the same time. You can't be radiating in love and being in anger at the same time. Now, sometimes it feels like we can, but we're really just like switching back and forth between the two so quickly that we feel like we're feeling them at the same time. And of course, you can always love your kid, but not, be happy with the action that they chose in the moment. But you can choose in this moment to deeply activate a particular vibration, particular emotion, and then radiate that out. Can you close your eyes for a moment and picture yourself in a place that's incredibly calming, incredibly soothing? Can you get into a space where you can radiate love, where you can radiate safety, where you can radiate understanding, where you can be that beacon to say, the world is a good place, If you can radiate that love. I remember particularly when my kid was very young, like 6 months, 8 months old, you're trying to get them to sleep. And every time you put them down in the crib, they're like waking again, crying. And you're just like holding on to like one hand, trying to like give them the safety of like, it's okay, you can go to sleep. And it might take, half an hour. It might take 45 minutes. And you're sitting there, you're getting so tired yourself. You still have a million things to do. So you're like radiating frustration, right? You're like, why is this kid not going to sleep? And then I would just like start to visualize myself laying in a hammock on a beautiful beach, hearing the waves in the background, feeling the sun just like just warming my face, feeling ever so slightly of a breeze, right? I would really put myself into that visualization, and what the kid would go to sleep. Why? Because now you're radiating love, you're radiating safety, you're radiating ease. You're like, oh, everything's good. Let's fall asleep. This is good. You have so much more impact over others. I mean, this is why we feel things so closely as highly sensitive, right? We're tapping into other people's emotions. So can we use that in a way of just streaming that positivity from ourselves, that like everything's okay, everything's good, I'm radiating that love, I know that this is a positive thing for you, this is going to work out beautiful. If you can hold that space, I feel like that is so much more beneficial than even like having to talk it out with them to help them to get in a better space. Let them process it. They're okay in their emotion where they are. Okay, what did I want to do to wrap this up? Because my kiddo is awake and waiting for me. Yeah, this is one of the 30 things that I wish I would have known as a highly sensitive. I started a playlist on my YouTube channel called 30 Things That I Wish I Would Have Known as a Highly Sensitive. And that is one of them. I wish I would have known that other people's happiness is not my responsibility, and that I can be so steady, so sturdy in my own vibration, in my own emotion, in order to not get dragged down by somebody else's emotion. Wow, so powerful. That is the last little nugget that I give you for today. Is so many times when I'm feeling myself getting pulled down by somebody else's emotion, I'm asking myself, do I want to be dominated by somebody else's vibration emotion, right? Because that's more like a shrinking. It's like where I am, I'm going to shrink down because I'm trying to get away from their negative emotion. But what you're doing is really you are lowering your frequency with that, because you're pulling in your energetic field around you, right? Versus then when I'm feeling that, right, of like, I'm getting attacked. It almost feels like an attack. I'm feeling my frequencies lowering because I am matching them. I'm being so impacted by their negative emotion. I feel myself. If instead then I start to I start to visualize expanding, right? Lovingly, lovingly. I'm not pressing anything on them. I'm not asking them to shift into a higher frequency emotion, but for me, am choosing, I want to be in a higher frequency, in a more uplifted space. So then I visualize myself expanding. Can I expand? Can I radiate love? Can I just be in my space, own my own space, lovingly, knowing that I am safe and I don't have to be impacted by anybody else's emotion. So I hope this was beneficial for you. Leave me a comment below. What are your thoughts? What are your ideas? Have you played with these kind of things? And what are challenges that you're feeling can come along with that? I'd love to have your comments, your opinions. Have an awesome day. I'll see you soon.